Hi, and welcome to this week's Mortgage Broker broadcast. My guest this week is Hayley Skinner, and I've been wanting to get Hayley onto the podcast for quite some time, talking about her sort of journey in financial services, from being in the banking world, management in banking, to then going as a self-employed mortgage broker, and then ultimately a business owner. Hayley's very keen in terms of well-being. She does so a great networking event as well, networking event, should I say. So I really want to get Hayley on to sort of share a story, really. There's so much more I want to talk to Hayley about, but the first podcast I want to do with her, just to get to a bit more, know her a bit more, get to know her values and the challenges she's faced, being a mortgage broker, being a self-employed mortgage broker, but also as a business owner as well. And how she sort of she has built a brand quite locally. She's a mortgage broker in Morecambe. Morecambe, as she will explain, is quite a tight-knit community. She's got one very famous client that she will talk about as well from her past as a mortgage broker in the banking world. But yeah, let's just get Hayley in the podcast to talk about her story. So welcome onto the podcast, Hayley. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad. Thank you for having me on.
Good. No, thank you for finally agreeing to come onto podcast in your busy schedule. I think this is the third attempt from the smile on your face. We get there eventually. But no, I really appreciate, because you've got so much going on, which we're going to talk about and get into the podcast, and you've got loads going on. But I appreciate. Can I introduce you as the Morecambe mortgage broker? Is that sort of like, is that allowed? Or?
I think I feel like I'm the Morecambe mortgage broker. Yeah, that's kind of like, we have a little thing, a joke with my kids, that everywhere we go around Morecambe, it's only a small little seaside town, and if we go shopping, I'll chat to people and they literally go, "Did you do their mortgage?" Like, that's what they say about anyone we ever meet. And then I go, "No, yeah, I did." Like, yeah, so I think pretty much covers probably most of Morecambe.
Nothing. I like Morecambe. Morecambe is not. Morecambe's the closest sort of seaside town to sort of where I live. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was only down in Morecambe a few weeks ago. So taking the dog on the promenade. It's a nice part of the world.
It is. It's not bad. There's a lot worse places. There's better places, but there's a lot worse. It's not Lytham St Anne's, is it? But it's, we've got the seaside. So
Exactly. You've got the seaside and the people are right. So that's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got everybody's mortgage covered in Morecambe. So
everybody in Morecambe, yeah, that's my slogan. I had a very famous, actually, if you think, I don't think I'm allowed to say, possibly, although I do. My worst kept secret is that there's a very famous Morecambe resident, Sporting. People usually know he lives here. And I did his mortgage before he was famous. Back when I worked at the Halifax, he walked in, 6'7" of him, just a little hint. And he told me he needed a mortgage and he was going to be a heavyweight champion of the world. And I just kind of laughed at the time. I was like, okay. And so that's my my most famous Morecambe resident.
Wow. Well, he is the most famous Morecambe resident, and I've just finished he's been on Netflix recently, hasn't he? With his sort of, so I think but that's the funny thing now. It has really put Morecambe on the map people now know what so when we're talking about the promenade and talking about Morecambe, people who obviously are interested in just Netflix as a whole, which people are, and then obviously a certain famous heavyweight champion of the world, then they'll know where you live. So that's a good claim to fame. You never mentioned that. We sort of
I like to say data protection. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say and not say about it, but I like to tell everybody I may or may not have done a heavyweight boxers mortgage back in the day, many years ago. You won't remember. Everyone said, "Do he'll remember?" Yeah, I'm sure he won't. It was many years ago now.
So was that first thing is because that leads us nice, because when I ask you about talking about your past and how you got into mortgages. So just first of all, we've gone straight into this and not even introduce you. So do you want to just do a quick introduction? See, I told you this, you trust in me with no agenda on a podcast. And we've had a chat before and thinking, do you know what? And I knew we'd be sort of straight into off on a tangent, not doing an introduction. So yeah, how rude of me. Do you want to do introductions, Hayley?
So I've been a mortgage advisor 26 years, something like it, well over 20 years anyway. Started off on a graduate scheme at the Halifax, just quite randomly, degree in criminology, went into banking, kind of links a bit now. But then did graduate scheme, had children and decided back in those days it was hard to be a manager as well as, now it's really common. You can job share and they're quite flexible. But 20 odd years ago, they were like, no, can't be a job share manager. So I went into mortgages, used my CMAP, and decided to be a part-time mortgage advisor. And that was really my backing. Many years at the Halifax, went over to the TSB, did some training there, and then quite a bit of a fluctuating journey. Did a master's degree in psychology, threw that in there to go and look at doing something with psychology, but then decided whilst I was waiting to do that to set up a mortgage business kind of by accident. Decided to go self-employed and then set up my own business with somebody, and that just grew. It was meant to be kind of a little kind of not a side hustle, but it was meant to be, you know, let's see how it goes, no real expectations. And then it just grew and grew. COVID happened a month later, so I set up in the February, and not even 4 weeks later we went into lockdown, which I had no idea how that would affect things, but I soon realised when valuers and surveyors couldn't go to anybody's house, and that it just shut down the whole industry for a couple of months. But then obviously once we could start moving houses and buying and selling it, obviously you'll remember it, there was quite a frenzy, the housing market, you know, houses shot up, rates were low. It seems like a bit of a heyday now, a couple of years later. So it got really busy, and then that was it. Just went from strength to strength, grew the business, took on administrators, offices, you know, kind of grew. And then actually this year I've taken a bit of a diversion and gone back, rebranded, and I'm just working entirely for myself now as Eden Mortgages, which there's a link with Morecambe there, and the Eden kind of was fitting. And so I'm back to kind of scale back a bit, working from home, doing things a little bit differently. So it's been quite a lot of changes over the years, and most of them happened kind of inadvertently with not too much of a great plan, a master plan, rightly or wrongly.
To pause the podcast for 1 second with Hayley, and hopefully you'll agree, great podcast so far, great guest on the podcast. But here we've got Lee Rowland with his weekly Mortgage Broker Bulletin.
Thank you, Craig. Hope you're keeping well. Welcome everybody to the 5th edition of the Mortgage Broker Bulletin. Put your hand up if you got caught out by the increase in rate rises with TSB. Well, I've got my hand up. Sent 2 illustrations over to clients, they agreed them, went to find the products, and they're gone. Now this isn't to open a conversation about how long they should give us. This is to open the conversation about checking your emails. Like, we're a really small business. I didn't check my emails, and I could have had a couple of problems. Luckily the clients were fine and we progressed. However, check those emails. Also put your hand up if you had a 1-star review on Trustpilot this week. Well, we did. Now our reviews are really important to us and they underpin everything we do. Luckily on Trustpilot you can request the details of the person who has given you the review. We got to the bottom of it. Luckily it was a case of mistaken identity and the person took it down. But just keep on top of your reviews and manage those as well, because bad reviews, as we know, can be really damaging for a business. If any BDMs have got any information they want to send to me about their latest offers, I record this on a Monday and it goes out on a Wednesday. So just send me a message on LinkedIn. Onwards, upwards, forwards, stay positive, and I'll speak to you next week.
Thanks for that, Lee. Thanks for another week of the Mortgage Broker Bulletin. That's really appreciated, and great insight to the world of mortgage broking right now. I think that always tends to be the case, doesn't it? It's always, you can always have these plans and talking about plans for the future and having long-term plans and things like that, but then you'll never know what's going to get thrown your way. And clearly you've been adaptable, is fair to say, over those years. So when you first started out with the Halifax, did you sort of think that this is a sort of job for life kind of banking environment, or did you already always know that you were going to own your own business one day and work for yourself?
Yeah, no, never, didn't even think. I just actually thought I'd go to the Halifax for a couple of years as a graduate opportunity, pay off some debts. At the time, it was a really good 2-year program that you went through, and I liked the sound of that. It was like modular, and it was a very good structured program. And I didn't think I'd ever intend. Banking wasn't for me. It wasn't ever the career. Always wanted to do something with psychology, which is why But what I did realise with banking and the mortgages is there is a lot of that involved. You know, it's kind of, you know, we're not exactly counsellors, but we are advising and helping people. And it did tick a lot of boxes, bizarrely. And then I think the self-employed thing come from years of frustration of being kind of at the bank and having to fit within their parameters and, you know, liking the people side of it. But there was a lot of other restrictions that you can't do in banks. You're just one lender. You say no a lot. It's literally a bit like that Little Britain computer says no. That's literally what I felt like some days, like, can't help you. And then I realised, you know, part of me, although I liked the psychology and wanted to help people, I realised I already do, and I do that. And if I went by myself, I could align my own values and not make it, you know, some of the bank, anyone who's worked in a corporate industry, you know, take away the corporateness and the targets and the sales side and actually go to the bit I like, which was the helping people.
Right. And to be fair, it's good you touched on the psychology side of it, because when you talked about that before in terms of you walking through your sort of history, your journey so far, it was quite, because that was the first thing I thought about. I said, well, that must tie in really well. The psychology side of things, all the mortgage brokers that are listening and to the podcast will be sort of either smiling and thinking, yeah, it must help with what you do running a business and being a mortgage broker.
Yeah, I think so. Because like you say, I did it and it was so interesting. I think human behavior, I don't think you can be a mortgage broker without being interested in the human side of it, what drives people. How I went to a conference last week. I work on Quilter Network, and there was an amazing behavioral expert who was looking at, you know, what drives people, you know, how social media works. You know, Martin Lewis says something on the TV and, you know, people take that on board, you know, and looking at human behavior and what we do. It's so linked with the mortgage market, with what people need, how people buy things, why, you know, it's literally psychology. It's intrinsically linked with any job. But I still think mortgage advising is a very human thing. You know, you're dealing with very emotional subjects. It's very important to people. It's money. It's, you know, mortgage, you know, getting somebody a house, helping with, you know, paying off debts. It's very, very tangible human things, isn't it? You know, we're making a big difference in people's lives if we can help them. So I think, you know, psychology is bound with every job, but I think with mortgage advising, like you say, other mortgage brokers know it is, you know, you do end up, you know, sometimes my children will be like, are you talking, you know, it's 5 o'clock on a Saturday and I've got a client and they might have a problem that's not particularly mortgage related, but because we've built up that relationship, it does definitely, the boundaries blur of when is mortgage advice just you kind of become, you know, a bit of a support kind of network for somebody. And I have had somebody once, a first time buyer, helped her through the process, and then she was like, can you just be my like life guru and life coach? Because I think people are coming to you and they build up that trust with you. So like you say, the psychology side of it is just part, you know, we'll all do it without any qualifications. We all become mini psychologists as such. But so it's good to have that bit of background. I'm sure it helps me.
No, definitely. I think, to be honest with you, I was thinking then, we've all been there. We've all gone through CMAP, and it's sort of your CMAP 1, your CMAP 2, your CMAP 3, but it has no psychology people side of it. And I think it's just, and you know what it's like, you do your CMAP and it's just, once you pass, you never look at it again. And I think that you should have, because like there's one qualification to become a mortgage person. So whether you're a mortgage advisor, mortgage consultant, mortgage broker, whatever your title is, it's the same qualifications that you go through, whether it's the CMAP or the RO way that you do it, and part of that doing it that way. But really, it should, there should be sort of like a mortgage broker, mortgage advisor. I think mortgage broker is more apt with it, because with, you know, self-employed mortgage broker, there should be a different qualification that's a little bit more in depth with being self-employed, but also as well the people, because it's the people. It's like I said right at the beginning about you are the mortgage broker, but you are that person. I'm going to brag, by the way, now, because I know you've not patented that, so I think I'm going to get that patent now.
That'll be it now.
But because you've done the psychology side of things and you are a people person with that aspect of you, you've been able to build that brand in your business locally very successfully because of that. It's not because you've got CMAP and I've got my
No.
CMAP 1 qualification. It's nothing to do with it. It's the people side of things that help you be a mortgage broker.
Mm. Yeah, there's that whole thing, is that people buy people, and like you say, you can have all the knowledge in the world, and you'll know when you work, you know, especially in banks, you work alongside lots of other mortgage advisors and brokers here. Well, they're not brokers in the banks, and everyone has their own distinct personalities, and you know, and we all do everything in a different way, and some, you know, and it very much is the person side of it that makes or breaks you, I think, as an advisor, or to go on to be self-employed. Is again another different skill. So you're right, you could do your exams, but there needs to be then a training course. That all the knowledge in the world doesn't make you a good, you know, you could go off and be an underwriter then, you know, different skills to be, and it very much is people skills. It's that adaptability as well. You may be dealing with a very wealthy client, you know, wanting, you know, portfolio landlord, and you might be dealing with somebody, you know, credit impaired, you know, at the bottom end with low income. You know, who I have a client the other day who was having problems because she'd gone to another mortgage broker and she'd said to him, you can't ring me, I forget things, you know, you must email me as a form of communication, you know, and people have different needs, and you've got to be adaptable and quite versatile. You can't just be like, this is how I advise, this is what I say, and this is what I do. You know, as we all know, getting documents back in, some people like to email you, some people like to come and give you a pile of printed off bank statements, you know. So I think the whole thing of being a successful broker is being adaptable, of not being like, this is what I do and this is how I do it, but adapting and reading your client and your customers and dealing with them in the way they want to be dealt with, and being able to change. And I think that's a big part of it. Like you say, there needs to be an exam on that kind of thing, of different types of clients and how you should be with them. That's the real learning, I think, that part.
It is, because that's the thing, is and it's even when you look at the inductions, whether I've seen induction courses from networks, I've seen induction courses from corporate world, banking, estate agents, say everybody's a first time buyer, everybody's got 15%, everybody's never had any credit issues. And so you set up in that world of this is what mortgage broking is going to be like. But then you hit with your first case and your first fact find, and literally the CCJs, the defaults, I've got 5% deposit, if anything. It's about like pieces, like, but like you said, it's that people aspect of it that you can't. People try to niche in certain areas and industries and things like that with the mortgage broking side of things, and I get that, but you've got to be that people person, because everybody's different. Every single first time buyer is different. Every single remortgage is different. Everybody's different. So, but you've hit the nail on the head, and like sort of what I talk about quite a bit, Hayley, to is people like to be, however somebody communicates with you, communicate back with them. So if they are texting you, text them back. If they're WhatsApping you, WhatsApp them back. If they call you, then don't email them back, and then they call you again and then email them back. You're not going to build a relationship that way, because we're all, whatever we do, whether we're banking, whether we're booking a holiday, whatever we're doing, you will have a way of doing something, communicating with that other individual. So just all you need to do is replicate what they did. Like however they communicate, whatever your process is, you need to adapt it to that client, however they communicate with you. But so, because you're not going to build long-term relationships that way, and clearly you are, which is testament to what you're doing.
Yeah, like you say, it's been tuned in, isn't it? Exactly what you said. The client keeps calling me. You know, sometimes I think it's bad. I don't really have a set process. I'm like, what do I do? Do I get emails? But actually, you're right. What you're saying is it's because that's the flexibility. If somebody's WhatsApping, I've introduced business WhatsApp now, and people love it because that's what people are doing. They're on the phones. I deal with a lot of shift workers, you know, people who can't answer the phone during the day, and they love it. Quick text, even if the text is to say I've sent you an email, because some people just don't check their emails. It's not, you know, as accessible as it used to be, or it's more accessible, it's on the phone. So I think, you know, sometimes a text, because you know they're on WhatsApp, you get to know that, you know, that they're around at 7 o'clock at night, you know, and it's kind of that, and that's the difference being a self-employed broker as well. The difference you won't get from your bank. You're less likely to get somebody at 7 o'clock say, you know, do you want a quick call now? I've just sent you an email. You know, that kind of level of adaptability we can do as self-employed brokers. And again, like you said, being tuned in and taking notice of your client and how they're dealing with you. You don't have to physically ask them. You can ask them, but also just being aware of how they like to communicate. Are they answering emails? If they're not, try another way. You know, do they want a phone call? Because we're all, like you say, we're all very different, aren't we? In what we'd prefer and what we find intrusive or what we find easy. Well, there's no set thing. So I think it's probably right that I don't have a set way of I'll email you. You know, it's being adaptable, and it's probably quite crucial.
Definitely. I think you have to be, like, and it shows when you look at the roles that you've done, you've had to adapt in that situation. So clearly you are an adaptable person, and you have to be as a mortgage broker, and you have to be as a business owner. You've got to be adaptable in this, in the world, because if you're not going to grow. You will be just become stagnant, and stagnant is not, if you're not growing, obviously you're not moving forward and building a business, whatever that looks like for you. But you've just got to you've got to be very adaptable in terms of the changing ways, and the industry's changing. We see that it changes every single day. It's just, it's so, we had a quick chat before we started hit record about how busy things are in a good way, but obviously that's sort of down to the industry changing day in, day out. So how did you find the so when you went from the banking world to then, did you go straight self-employed when you left banking, or was that employed? You know, like you went straight, so how did you find that transition?
Baptism of fire, really. The first thing I would say is that the network training, again, is just knowledge. This is the system, use it, and maybe run through a fact find. But again, you'll know it's very much based on compliance. Say this, say this, say that. There isn't a kind of booklet. Then it's just learning by experience, isn't it? You get your first client and you're like, in the bank, it would just be, I look back on those days like semi-fondly now. I used to hate it, but where you would just not be able to say no, you didn't get involved, whereas it's really meaty. I think as a broker, it's great, you can help them, but you can go down some real wormholes in what you've got to do. So once you get these real life, it's like the real world when you're broken, you get these real life scenarios of gifted deposits and etc., all these things, and you've got to, so I think it's just learning, like literally by coming across it. Some of my more meaty cases and my clients with more problems, they're the ones I've learned the most from, and they're the ones I get the biggest reward from, when I've really helped somebody with all these different variables. So I always say, if you've just got one or two things that's a bit quirky, you will be okay. But once you're getting 3 or 4 variables, that are all complex, finding a lender that will do, a right to buy, an adverse credit, and a recent, the more you get these scenarios in, but they're the ones that you get real pleasure from helping. Like that's the, I did it. It's kind of, so a lot of it, again, with the psychology, it's problem solving. That's how I see myself. I'm really tenacious, and I'm a huge problem solver. That's what I like, and the straightforward cases are great, but we don't get them that often as brokers. And B, you don't get the same level of satisfaction, but like you do when you've really cracked a case. That's how I kind of feel with it. So there is that. And as a broker, it's kind of baptism of fire, straight in. You do your general compliance training, and then it's just really learning. And then, like you say, and then everything. What I have realised, somebody at the bank said I haven't got 25 years experience. I've just done a year 25 times, and every year's been different. And I love that. It's like everything we learned pre-COVID. Once COVID come in and we had furlough, and all the different terms that we'd never heard of, all these new words and new scenarios, it was like everything you knew before didn't matter, because suddenly the banks had their own rules, their own variations of it, and we had to relearn the underwriting again. And the same now, it's like you said, it's daily. So every time, like, the rates are coming down now, they went up, and that causes all sorts of problems, and keying applications at 7 in the morning and 8 at night, and having to get submitted, and then that goes, and you think, oh great, and then now we get lowered rates, we're having to check rates daily, getting clients on new. So every set of variables brings a whole new kind of way of doing your job. So you're just learning all the time. It isn't like, oh, you learn and then you're okay. Somebody new could have joined 3 months ago and know as much as I do about, how you submit a rate change, because it's just, it's literally, like you said, being adaptable, not just to your clients, but the changing market. You just constantly, so it always keeps you. It's not I never know a mortgage advisor say they were bored. It's just change and adapting to change. And it's it's a very fast-paced job.
Yeah, certainly. I think you've hit a really good point, because when you look at being a broker, it's some people really struggle with it, because they may be, and I've seen this firsthand, where somebody's come into the industry and they've come from somewhere where they knew their job inside out, back to front. They've done it for a few years. Nothing ever changed. It would literally, they knew everything about it. So they were the fountain of all knowledge. And I sort of always say, well, when you become a broker, your mindset has to shift with that, because you will never know everything, no matter how long you do this role. Because I still know brokers that have been doing this for sort of 10, 15, 20 years that still, I will ask questions to other brokers because they're still not sure. So some people can't accept that, which is just quite, not strange, it's just how they are. But you've got to accept that it will get easier when you first becoming self-employed mortgage broker. It will get easier, but you will never know everything about the job. Because like you say, it's a good point of that you've had 25 new years. It's like literally you've had 21, because it is constantly changing. But you can't, the thing is with broken is, you just, as long as you know where to look, there's always an answer to find. The answer is always out there. It's just knowing where to look to find it. But then going back to another point that you sort of said there, which some brokers do struggle with as well, is that particularly from the banking world into self-employed mortgage broking, is that, like you say, you got to a dead end quite quickly in the banking world. It was a case of didn't match criteria, computer says no, and you sent them on the web. Whereas now you are a problem solver. You will go to the good brokers, will go and really go to the end of the earth to find a solution to that problem, rather than giving up at the first hurdle. It's like, well, that's the first hurdle. When's the next one? Next one. And not until you've gone through every single possible solution for that client, and you've got a dead end at every single time, can you look at yourself and go, I've tried as much. I've still got a no, which is very rare. But I know that I've tried. And you're giving the impression, Hayley, you're the kind of person that will go for your own, it's not only for your clients, but for you as well, to know that actually, you know that a no is a no, and they can't get a mortgage no matter who it's with. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think, like you say, you know, you've done everything. And even then, it's never a no, that's it, go away, bye, ever. What you still feel, you still come up with a solution. I don't know about yourself, but, you know, a lot of brokers, we will offer a solution. So it's usually not at the minute. If you can't do it, and it's absolutely not, there is a plan. There's always come back in 3 months. What you need to do is, you wouldn't ever just say no, go away, like you have to in a bank. You will be like, right, what you need to do, look at your credit file, you know, 3 more months pay slips. There's always a solution. The solution, it's just not now. It's like, come back in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And that is what happens. You know, that is the best feeling, when a client comes back and says, you know, you said this to me, I've done it, I've gone away, I've paid this off, I've looked at that CCJ. You know, some people don't even know they've got them. So it's helping them, right? Go find out, get it paid, come back. You know, there's always a solution. Nobody's ever a no, that's it forever. You know, there's usually a 12-month plan. You know, you talk to self-employed people, and it's like, right, what you need to do. And I love that. I love getting to know their accountant, speaking to them and saying, right, we've got a 12-month plan. They're wanting to move house, you know, this is what we're going to need, this is what, you know, and giving them something to aim for. You know, they come, should I go limited company and change? Well, no, if you're getting a house, just wait, you know, and giving them advice, or you can do this. So it's that kind of, I love speaking to people early and devising a plan. So rather than coming to me and it being a no, let's get a 6 to 12-month plan together. So I always feel like you're always giving a solution. The solution might not be what they wanted to hear at that time, that they can get a mortgage instantly, but there's always a 12-month plan of, this is how we will get you a mortgage eventually.
No,
and that's the part I like.
No, I love the fact that you're sort of saying that there's always some sort of onward. If it's not a no, it might be a no today, but it's not a long-term no. There's always a plan to whatever that situation might be. Like you say, self-employed getting 1 year's accounts, or getting that CCJ off their credit file, whatever it is, there's always some. It's not just a case for you of no, and that's it, go away and never speak to that client again. You're always providing, because you're still providing that client with a solution, even though this might be not what they want to hear right this second. but you're then giving them, so, well, if you do this, this, and this, then you will get there. But this is what you need to do over the next 3 to 6 months. And that's a good, if you ask a lot of brokers, and I know this is how I felt, is when you couldn't help somebody initially, but then you've given them a plan and they've gone through the plan, and then you've kept in contact with them just by text or whatever, just see how they're getting on. And then they come back a year later, and then you then place that case and you get them in that house. You've got that client for life. You've got to do a lot to get rid of that client at that point. But that's how it should be. As a broker, you should be getting a buzz from that of, oh, I spoke to them 12 months ago and they've come back now. Oh, I spoke to them 9 months ago and they've come back now. That's a real big motivating thing from a broker's point of view.
Yeah, no, I've had one 3 years. It kept coming to me every 12 months. New scenario, new situation, was at work, set us up a new business, this had happened, illness, more children, you name it. Every year, every 12 months, there was some new anomaly. Wife's on maternity leave now. There was new things. And for 3 years we worked, I kept saying, come back in 12 months and have done this, but something else. There was always, so anyway, 3 years it took of us planning and, you know, and ironing things out. And in the end, we managed to get it through. It was hard work. I think I saved him about £40,000 in what his outgoings were. When we managed to do what it was he was looking to do, it was massive and it was quite life-changing for him. And it took 3 years of constant, every 6 months, where you up to, sending, you know, where he was at, sending accounts, sending his current situation. And again, it was a not right now again, I'm sorry, you know, like, carry on. And like say 3 years later, and we did it. And these, you know,
I know, but that is the service for a client, because what I love about that is that it's the service. You're not chasing the pound. You're actually helping the client now with actually knowing that you're self-employed, so you're not getting paid a salary for doing this for the client. It's your time that you put, an effort that you put in there, but you're looking at the long game, which brokers need to look at that. That's particularly from a client point of view. They, like I say, you'll just have loyalty from that client now for the rest of their need, their mortgage need life. But you are doing it just to help that client and seeing it as helping the client, even though you're not going to gain anything that second. You're still working with that client. Whereas maybe question whether brokers would do that, thinking, well, I'm not getting anything from that today, so I'll just move on to the next person and not help them right now.
That's really short-sighted. I think it's about the long game. And or even at the bank, I felt like that. That's kind of why I knew the self-employed life would be for me, that I am, you know, I can always see you help somebody 10 minutes, you know, who, you know, it doesn't necessarily look like an instant thing. I have some people who I've just had an off-the-record chat, sent them away, you know, you should do this, that, go to your own lender, you know, I've never done the mortgage, and they have referred people to me for years, you know, that I haven't even done their mortgage, but I have helped them. You know, it's not always about that instant gain. And actually with this one, this remortgage that took 3 years and a lot of work and a lot of time before, inadvertently, I didn't know who his father-in-law was. His father-in-law is a financial advisor who was blown away by my persistence and level of effort. He's then recommends me now, and we've got a great working relationship. And I didn't know this. So again, it's that who's watching, who are they speaking to? You've done this, you know, you spent a lot of time and effort with them, but then who are they speaking to? They're telling their friends and family. You don't know who their friends and family are. And that's been a really good outcome, is inadvertently I've made a forge a really close relationship that has, you know, brought more to the table than I could ever imagine when I was just chatting to this client every 6 months and, you know, looking at his stuff and sending him away. I didn't realize, you know, it's people's connections. You don't, and you can never measure, you know, what's going to come from one client, you know, and who they're going to tell.
Definitely. Like you say, that's short-sighted way of looking at it if you don't help them out. And I think that's, like you said, you never know. And obviously that's helped you build a local brand as well in terms of with you, because you're in a close-knit community, and one good word, obviously one referral goes a long way, and you're reaping the benefits of that. But then on the other way, that is, if it wasn't good feedback, or it was bad feedback about your brand, then obviously that won't help in terms of your local community as well within what you're doing, especially now. So when, just with regards to, you went self-employed, wasn't your own business when you went self-employed that then? Was that under another firm, or did you go straight in as
Yeah.
self-employed?
So that's a bit of a little mini story. I went self-employed under, because obviously I didn't set up my own business, didn't know. So I went self-employed thinking, you know, I would just work under that. On paper, it sounded good. You get a split, a commission split, and you don't have to deal with the admin and running a business. So it sounded like the perfect scenario of, you know, of being self-employed, starting to dip your toe in a more flexible lifestyle, and, you know, income, you know, could potentially be more than as an employed. However, that actually was a very short little period of time where it didn't work out for several reasons, because obviously what you are is you're self-employed, but you're really employed. You are under somebody who is kind of calling the shots, wanting you to work in a set way, etc. Right. So it's a bit of a like best of both worlds, because you're self-employed without having to run a business, but also on the conversely, you can feel very employed under some people. So it can be self-employed, so you don't have, you know, sick pay and, you know, and all the great benefits of pension of being employed, but also you could have, again, the dynamic under working under that model depends very much on who you're working under. And I think for some people it can work brilliantly if you're working with a experienced company that treats you well as a self-employed and has, you know, good admin and good support. But it can all go very wrong if you've got none of the comforts of being employed, but you've got, you know, somebody, you know. So again, every experience, you know, can be different for doing that. And unfortunately, I went into a place where it wasn't a positive experience. It was kind of a, you know, instead of getting all these benefits, it was actually just, yeah, I feel very employed, but I've actually got no perks or no thing. So yeah, very quickly, that was kind of a very short duration when then I decided it didn't work out, and I decided to set up by myself, because I thought, well, really part of being self-employed for me was actual 100% flexibility of who I work with, how I work, when I do it. So it was quite quick really, but I did go into business with somebody who had a lot more experience. We were both very different, so that worked very well, because there was a good mix of, you know, how we worked, and she did have more experience. So between us, we kind of set up this business, and I liked that then I could drive that. I'm very values driven, and I like to work how I feels right. And that's kind of been probably a natural progression, probably not as quickly as I did it, but I think the progression would be going from an employed role to a self-employed under somebody, and then as a business owner, self-employed, whether that be DA or as an AR. But I think that's the kind of natural progression of things, isn't it, of what works, doing it in that basis.
No, definitely. I think there is, and you're right, there is a lot of, but there seems to be quite a lot of firms that are not like that in terms of the self-employed, but then you have got the flexibility, freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it, kind of thing. There's no micromanagement there. But there certainly are firms, and I know a few, that they class you as self-employed, but there is very micromanaged still. So it's as though you're employed, but you just got a self-employed title, which just doesn't. You go self-employed for a reason. I know why I went self-employed, and which is one word: freedom. Like, I wanted freedom to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. It's like, and even now that I run my firm very much in that way. Nobody tells me what to do, when to do it. Likewise, I never tell anybody in my firm what to do, what to do it, because I think I hate micromanagement. I just think it's a very suppressive way to run a business, but people feel that works for them, and that's fine. If that works for them and that's what they want to do, that's fine. But like I said, for you realize that fairly quickly with what you were doing, that you wanted that freedom to make your own decisions and run your own business. So fair play to you. You did find that fairly quickly, and did have the brave. You was brave to then go, do you know what? And you knew. I'm guessing you knew at that point. Ultimately, it was quite a quick stepping stone to ultimately what you wanted with regards to owning your own business.
Yeah, like you say, without giving it too much thought, rightly or wrongly, I think, you know, I just kind of went for it. And I'm a single parent. I don't have a partner in the background or a second income. I didn't have huge amounts of savings, so I I like to think I'm very risk averse. If you ask me about myself, I would say I'm very risk averse. I like, love protection, insurances, making sure I'm safe. And, I've taken these big risks. I think going self-employed, when you talk to employed advisors, going self-employed is risky. Setting up your own business, they're making that next step and actually doing it as the business owner, is risky. And it's about taking these risks actually, and kind of, but having that self-belief that you can do it. If you look at somebody, I think that was it. I looked and think, I can do it. I've worked under, several business owners, and I think, I can do it. And it's having that belief, especially as a woman and a single parent, and finding lots of practical reasons. Do I have the time? Do I, and actually, if I'd have thought more, possibly not, but nobody does. And it's about, because I think that transition to being a business owner as well as self-employed, you've got two jobs there. And I always feel like your role as a mortgage advisor is a job, is a way more than full-time job. And then what you also have is running the business, which is a second job away from being a mortgage advisor. You're then in the world of, compliance, social media, invoicing, accounting, that kind of networking, marketing. So that is a full-time job in itself. So usually as a one-man band or a very small business, you are doing, I think there's a phrase of like wearing all the hats. You are being everything. You are the marketing manager, the accounts manager, you are, as well as you've got this full-time job of income earning and being a mortgage advisor. And I think that's the, where it starts going like, wow, this is a lot.
And so did you because obviously you went in partnership with somebody, and was that about 4 years you was in partnership with somebody with a business? So you've gone in there, you're a director of business in partnership with somebody, and then now you're there with your own business now. It's like Eden Mortgages is you, and it's your business. You've got obviously the full autonomy now with what you're doing. How are you finding that, going from being owning your own business, but with another director? There was another director there, wasn't there, from what you sort of said? There was another director there. So you've gone in part and done that for 4 years. Now you're then totally on your own. How are you sort of finding that?
Yeah, I think it would have been difficult to do that straight away. I don't think I had the experience. I don't think I had the network or the support around me. And it just felt like a natural progression. Again, quite soon into it, I feel like it worked brilliantly. It was great. There was two of us. We could set up. We compromised on everything. What do you think? We were very different. And we always found this middle ground. So it was great. And we always had each other to, thrash problems through with, to go to for mortgage help. Like this, we were each other's support team, which was great, and we recruited more people. But everything, the compromise that was great, the pros and cons is the pros, which is having somebody to always run something past, became the cons as well, because you might have very differing views on how things are run, who you recruit, where your office is, all these decisions. That it's great to have somebody with, I felt like everything then was a compromise for both of us. And as everybody has different reasons, different reasons why, I think, different values, different reasons for why they're doing it. And that can become quite apparent when you're running any form of business with anybody, like a marriage. There's different ways of how you want to do things, and sometimes the compromising works and sometimes it doesn't. And I just felt, for me, it was the right time, because what I did have 4 years later was a great support network of other business owners, other mortgage brokers, accountants, people. I've got quite a close-knit support group. So the kind of things that I might need to run problems by, what do I do with this? I feel like I've got that. I mean, again, small town, have a very close-knit group of support of other business owners. I've established myself. I do a lot of work. I mentor for local business groups. I've done networking, so I've created a quite knit team of people that I could go to, because I think that's quite difficult when you're by yourself. Even just the smallest thing, what do I do about this? Should I take an office? Where do I advertise? I'm part of some peer support networks that I helped set up, that kind of where you can run questions like that through other trusted business owners, regardless of what their business is. We've all got the same issues, problems, recruitment, whatever it may be. It's great to have. And I think you build that once you go self-employed. You then build that network up. And I think not necessarily to do with networking as we see it in building business relationships of, but actually support networks of, you know, just off the record, can you help me with this problem? And I think that's just as important as building it for like, oh, let me, you know, refer people to you. And, you know, it's actually important to have people. It's not about that or about sales. It's about helping and support and guidance from people more experienced than you.
Because the sale aspect of it will come. Like you've set these networking groups up, you've got the networking in Morecambe, haven't you? That sort of stuff that comes on my social media feed. So you really have built that relationship up with local businesses, not from, like I say, it's not from a sales aspect, but it will generate sales for you because people will refer to you, because it's the trust thing first of all. It's not a case if you're not going to a networking event, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not going to some event, which I'm seen in the past where you've got to pass me three names that I've got to call, and you've got to pass 3 people, 3 people. It's not that kind of thing. From what you're sort of saying, and it's a great way to build relationship up, because it is all about local. It is all about small businesses. All small businesses need to help each other out. There's a lot more support from that point of view now with each other, and that there is more sort of camaraderie and community from that aspect, rather than looking at it from a sales aspect of I've got to pay me £10 a week and turn up and I get a free cup of tea and a bacon sandwich, and I've got to pass 3 names to this person and that, and it's very much, and then the shame, the shame bells ring if you haven't got 3 names, and you just stressing about going to the event because you're thinking I've not got 3 names, I need to find 3 names, it's like, whoa, like take a step back for a second. This is not what it's about. And you really have stepped it back, and I absolutely love that. It is a great story.
Yeah, it's about that. Those sort of networking events become very corporate. You feel like you're back in that banking corporate world of having to do this and make things fit, and I'll get you a name just to tick a box, which is entirely not. That's losing the human element. Actually, I'll tell my friend or my sister about you if I've got a need to, you know, like then I'll think of you because I go walk. And there's something beautiful about walking. I think the whole networking thing come about entirely selfishly because I like walking. I like going in the Lake District, hiking, and I want to get out of my office. And if I think tomorrow I'll go for a walk, I probably won't because I'll be busy and I'll have an app to key. Whereas if I've said, let's all meet at 9:30, it's accountability. Let's meet up, let's go for a walk. Sometimes there's one person, sometimes there's 10, and we chat, and you just chatting, you're finding out people's, you know, experiences, you're talking to them about problems you might have, they might have, and you're doing it all just whilst walking and chatting. And it's, like you say, massive networking, but without even thinking of it like that. And then of course, if they've got a problem, you know, if I'm chatting with somebody or constantly, I'm like, oh, that reminds me, you know, that they'd be good. I know a letting agent, you know, you can use her, but without it being formalized, nobody's ticking box. It's genuine relationships, it's genuine trust you're building. I think I like them, you know, and it's mixing it up. So yeah, and I think LinkedIn's the same. LinkedIn has been amazing. I massively love LinkedIn and the support, like you said. What I love is that camaraderie, other mortgage brokers. You know, I think you've got Lee, I saw this morning, Lee Rowland is going to do a spot on your podcast.
On the pod,
and that's, so Lee set up around a similar time as me, and I remember seeing him and Matt Poole, and you know, and there's people that, you know, at the same time, Suzanne, you know, and Simone Riley. There's a few names that I was setting up, they were setting up, and people have been so helpful and really, you know, that's how it should be. Nobody's competition. We're all different geographic, and even if they were next door, it wouldn't matter. We've all got our niches. We've all got people that will like us, or we will want to work with them, you know, and that's, I love that. I love the sharing aspect and that, you know, not just networking, like you say, locally, but the support network that can be built virtually. None of us have probably met each other, or, you know, not often. But yeah, the support that is available on LinkedIn within the mortgage communities is amazing.
I think it's funny you've sort of said what you've said there and then brought Lee into that, because the reason why Lee and I, like our we're very similar in terms of outlook. Of mine's always been the same, of abundance mentality. There is enough mortgages, there's enough chimney pots, there's enough sales, enough remortgages, there's enough protection to feed the mortgage broker population. We don't need to fight over each other, and there is abundance of that. And I think that's why Lee and I get on so well, because we have got that, we connect in that way. And I used that word, and he sort of said, I just love that, because that's how he feels as well. Is that we don't, if there is another broker in Morecambe or another broker, it's not, there's enough business. Like you said, somebody will click with you and think, I want to use Hayley as a mortgage broker. Somebody might use, like, or somebody might not. But if there's somebody else that they feel better suited with, then it's fine. But it is. I think that's the big thing, is that, and what we don't realize within mortgage brokers, and you've said it, is the feedback that I get from new brokers coming into the industry is that they're pleasantly surprised of how helpful other mortgage brokers are in this, to help them get on the path and on the right path, really, to build a career. Whereas wherever industry they've come from, it's always been very cutthroat, very much the non-abundance mentality. Everybody wants everything rather than, and it's just a different mindset. And it's good that, like, see, you look at LinkedIn and you see people who you're saying names there that start out at the same time. That's a great thing to have, that community within the mortgage broker space. They've never met up, they've never gone walking together, they've never sat at any particular corporate or non-corporate events, but still would know, that you would be there. Everyone knows they would be there for each other if you needed them to be. So that's amazing. It's good.
Yeah, really good thing. And really, I think, and like you say, it is the abundance mindset. Not everyone will be like that. But personally, I think, look how many PTs there are in a town. Look how many hairdressers, how many gyms. You know what I mean? You pick your own things for, and it's the same abundance. There is plenty, and helping somebody else. And actually, again, it's reaping what you sow, isn't it? By helping people, saying, pick up the phone to me. Have you got a problem case? Can I help with this? And I feel like the more helpful you are, it will come back. It's mindset. It's back to the psychology, isn't it, of it, and that positive mindset. If I help someone, that they'll help me when I have a problem, and and that's, and you can see that. And LinkedIn probably does have people who want to do that, who are on there looking for support and active, so it will attract a certain type of broker that is open and sharing and and gives, like you say, Lee, I think he sent me a mug when we first, things like that, and he sticks in my mind, these little things. I know I could probably pick up the phone to any one of those or message them and say, can you help me? And I think, creating that and creating more people, with, like you say, the abundance mindset, it really does come down to the whole psychology of it and the mindset. And that's with your clients, but with each other as well, other business, non-mortgage owners, and also mortgage business owners. So it's like it's like a Venn diagram, isn't it? It all links together, and in the middle is you. And you need all these components to work and be successful. Definitely.
Hayley, right, we could continue. I could continue. Like you said to me at the start of this, well, how long does
I thought it'd be like 10 minutes.
And I said, well, it doesn't matter. I said, it is what it is, but normally about 40 minutes. So I could tell by your face thinking, I can't talk for 40 minutes. Literally, we're well into 50 minutes now.
Yeah,
we've not even talked about walking, hiking, any of them. We haven't even talked about that.
We'll have to have more podcasts.
We do. Do you know what? Well, you just said it there. Like I was going to say to you, we need to get you back on the podcast to talk more about the psychology side and the well-being and the hiking. And maybe I might have got, I think I'm on number 64 of Wainwright. I think I'm on 64th.
Yeah, only on 40 something. Somebody wanted to do Fairfield Horseshoe again. I said, I'm not duplicating them. It's hard enough to do them anyway. I'm not doing 8 more that I've already done. Like, no, I need some new ones. So
Fairfield Horseshoe, obviously, only you and I and a few people that will have done that will know what that's like. And it's not it's a great walk, but it's not the easiest, is it?
Fairfield, no, I don't want to do it again. It's like, I've done it now. I ticked the box. I'm not doing this for fun.
Yeah, exactly. I just need them ticked off the list. That's it. Hayley, we are going to get you back on. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so honest. I've absolutely loved recording the podcast, and I knew I would. That's why I've been persistent of trying to get you on. But thank you so much for for coming on, and it's been great to talk to you. And we will get you back on, no doubt. So thank you so much.
Fabulous. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Hayley, for being an amazing guest on the podcast. Finally getting into the podcast. And I'm sure you'll agree, was a great guest to hear and a great journey that she shared. Hayley will no doubt be back on the podcast. There's so much that we didn't talk about on the podcast. I want to talk about, particularly around the psychology, the health, the well-being of being a mortgage broker, which I think, as you all know, is very important. And yeah, no doubt we'll get Hayley back onto the podcast. Thank you to everyone that listens to the podcast and subscribed. Any feedback, any comments, please leave them in whatever platform you listen to or watch the podcast on. And as always, don't forget to run your own race.